The mausoleum of Empress Dowager Cixi of the Qing Dynasty in China. At the end of the 19th century, she held the highest power in China for 47 years. Her mausoleum is splendid and buried with countless treasures. In 1928, an army robbed her tomb, dragging her body out of the coffin and looting the treasures. This is the story of Empress Dowager Cixi and her mausoleum. In the suburbs of Zunhua City, Hebei Province, China, lies a grand royal cemetery. This area is the resting place of the 5 emperors of the Qing Dynasty and their empresses and concubines. Among them is the famous Empress Dowager Cixi, whose tomb is here. In 1852, 17-year-old Miss Yehanara was drafted by the imperial palace and became a low-level concubine of Emperor Xianfeng. She was promoted many times in the following years and became the highest-ranking concubine. Her status was only lower than that of Empress Nuhuru. In August 1861, Emperor Xianfeng died at the age of 30. Since Empress Nuhuru had no son, Yehanara's son Zaichun became the new emperor, Tongzhi. Since then, concubine Yehanara has become the Empress Dowager Cixi, and Empress Nuhuru has become the Empress Dowager Cian. In terms of status, Cixi was still a little lower than Cian, but not by much. Since Emperor Tongzhi was only 5 years old, senior government officials and the 2 Empress Dowagers would jointly decide on major government affairs. However, just a few months later, the 2 Empress Dowagers launched a coup and removed these officials from their posts. Since then, the 2 Empress Dowagers have held the highest power in the country. In 1875, the 19-year-old Emperor Tongzhi passed away before he could take control of the country. Since Emperor Tongzhi had no sons, who would inherit the throne was a big issue. To continue to hold power, Empress Dowager Cixi chose her 4-year-old nephew Zaitian to be the new emperor, and that would be Emperor Guangxu. At this point, the status of the 2 Empress Dowagers was roughly the same, and these 2 mausoleums were built during this period, which is why they are side by side and look the same. The mausoleum on the left belongs to Cian, and the one on the right belongs to Cixi. In 1881, Empress Dowager Cian passed away. Since then, the 46-year-old Empress Dowager Cixi firmly held China's supreme power in her own hands. Soon after, she spent big money renovating her own tomb on a large scale, while neglecting the one that belonged to Cian. At that time, China suffered major external setbacks, while natural disasters occurred frequently, and people's lives were in distress. Under such circumstances, Cixi ordered her tomb to be renovated, spared no expense. The project cost an astronomical amount of money and lasted 13 years. This building is a memorial hall. The walls and ceiling were covered with gold powder. A golden dragon coiled around each pillar. In ancient China, the image of the dragon was a symbol of supreme power and could only be used by emperors, so it is quite unusual to see it here. These decorations consumed more than 140 kilograms of gold. In 1928, about 20 years after Cixi's funeral, an army entered the royal cemetery, and Cixi's mausoleum was one of their targets. They broke into this hall and cut off the golden dragons on the pillars, so what we see now are replicas. Almost all of the gilded ceiling was stolen, with only 5.5 pieces surviving. By 1888, Emperor Guangxu was already 18 years old. Empress Dowager Cixi pretended to return the power to Guangxu, but in fact, she still controlled everything. 10 years later, dissatisfied with Emperor Guangxu's reforms, Cixi launched a coup and imprisoned him. Another 10 years passed, and on November 14, 1908, Emperor Guangxu passed away, and within 24 hours, Empress Dowager Cixi also passed away, ending 47 years of rule. Guangxu's mausoleum was opened and looted in 1938. In 2008, experts analyzed his body and determined that he died of poisoning. About that mausoleum, I'll leave the link in the description. In 1912, 4 years after Cixi's death, the Qing Dynasty fell, and the imperial tombs were no longer well guarded. In 1928, amid the chaos across the country, an army stationed in this region, led by Commander Sun Dianying, moved into the cemetery to rob the tombs. It was well known that Cixi lived a luxurious life, so there must have been a lot of treasures in her tomb. It naturally became their primary target. The underground palace of this mausoleum is very shallow, and they found the entrance without much effort. As the Empress Dowager, Cixi's underground palace only had one tomb chamber. Compared with the Empress, the layout was much simpler. We can see it from outside. Her coffin is just behind the gate. In the previous episode of the Qianlong Mausoleum, we mentioned the serious water seepage issue in the underground palace. Cixi Mausoleum learned the lesson and installed floor drains so the tomb chamber would always be dry. Of course, this also provides convenience for tomb robbers. After Cixi's funeral, the pair of stone doors were closed. In 1928, soldiers who robbed the tomb came here and found that they could not open the door, so they smashed it with weapons, but it didn't work. We can still see those marks today. The soldiers then found that a big stone bar was bracing the doors from the inside, making it impossible to open from the outside with brutal force. Therefore, they put a stick into the crack of the doors, knocked down the stone bar, and then opened the doors successfully. We can still see this stone bar on the ground, which broke into 2 pieces when it fell. According to the funeral customs of the Qing Dynasty, all treasures were inside the coffin with the tomb owner. Therefore, After breaking into the tomb chamber, the soldiers smashed open the coffin with weapons and found Cixi's body lying among countless treasures. Since it was only 20 years since she died, Cixi's body has not yet decomposed. To get the treasure in the coffin, the soldiers dragged her body out, and the soldiers stripped off all 3 layers of Cixi's clothes to snatch the pearls on them. The tomb robbery lasted 7 days, and they took away 20 truckloads of treasures from these tombs. Someone familiar with the situation once said, quote, "The recovery of those treasures would be enough to make the entire country wealthy." Unquote. Soon, this explosive news spread throughout the country, and Puyi, the last emperor of the Qing Dynasty who had abdicated, immediately sent a team to clean up the mess. After those personnel arrived, they found Cixi's body in the corner of the tomb chamber at this location, shirtless and wearing only pants. This photo was published in the Illustrated London News on January 18, 1930. We can see that the tomb was a total mess at that time. They put the body back into the coffin, closed the stone doors, and sealed the tomb entrance. In other words, Cixi's body is now in this coffin. As for the army commander Sun Dianying, he got away with bribing senior government officials with the treasure. This tomb robbery shocked the whole country. In 7 days, they looted the tombs of Emperor Qianlong and Empress Dowager Cixi and took away countless treasures. And we will talk about the details of this infamous tomb robbery in the next episode.